Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at tonight's candidate forum for Legislative District 6. My name is Dave Zorn from CAF Radio here in Flagstaff, and I'm pleased to serve as the moderator of this legislative candidate forum for education, co-sponsored by two local nonpartisan 501c3 nonprofit organizations, which is the Arizona Center for Economic Progress and Save Our Schools Arizona Network. These organizations are collaborating to provide voters with objective and factual information about key public education issues so they can make informed decisions this election cycle. We will begin by allowing each candidate up to 2 minutes to introduce themselves and their education platform. For the sake of equal treatment and ample time for Q&A, we will be keeping time and asking candidates to conclude their remarks immediately if their time limit is reached. As you can see, there's a countdown clock that's visible for all candidates and audience members, although there'll be a time up there eventually. Once introductions are complete, I will ask 4 questions that were contributed in advance by registered audience members. Each candidate will have 1 opportunity to answer each question in under 2 minutes. And if another candidate's answer directly references myself or you, actually, I may choose to allow 1 minute for time for response if time allows. If you can understand that, I can read it again. At the end of our forum, I will ask each candidate to deliver closing remarks and we'll conclude the forum. I encourage the candidates to share their websites or social media handles as well during that time so that voters may continue to learn about your positions. With that, we'll begin our discussions. I'm going to allow candidates their 2-minute opening statements and starting in alphabetical order. Unfortunately, Wendy Rogers and Brenda Barton chose not to be here tonight, so that's 2 less candidates. And we are still kind of waiting for Walt Blackman, so if he comes in, we'll kind of work him into it too. But for right now, I'll introduce the candidates that are on screen for you right now. I'll start up, at least on my upper right corner. He's an independent candidate for State House LD6. It's Art Babbitt. Also joining us is the Flagstaff Mayor, Mayor Coral Evans. She's running on the Democratic ticket for House. And for our Senate candidate tonight, running on the Democratic ticket as well, is Felicia French. So I thank you all for being here with us tonight. And we're going to start with the opening statements in alphabetical order. A stands for Art in this case. So Art, take it away. You got 2 minutes.
Great. Well, thank you, Dave. And thanks so much for the opportunity to have a conversation, dialogue, and hopefully enunciate some perspectives and visions that resonate with people who take education in our state seriously. Educational outcomes are inseparable from economic outcomes, from safe neighborhoods, and from communities which are vibrant and vital. As a county supervisor, I have been in office for 15 years up here in Coconino County, both at the city of Flagstaff and Coconino County. I've been well served by building coalitions, balancing budgets, and getting work done for the better part of 15 years in local and elected office. I'm also a small business owner. And I've started a number of businesses up here that I think have contributed to the vitality of our community and the vibrancy from an economic perspective, but also from a cultural and social perspective. I'm a problem solver. As an independent, I have tried to carve a lane out that focuses on the problems that we're trying to solve and creating opportunities for our communities and the next generation who come behind us. I build my problem-solving skills on building trusted and respectful relationships. I think this last Tuesday was a great example of when you don't have respectful and trusted relationships and what happens. I'm not running as an independent because it is easier. It is not. It is profoundly more difficult. I'm running as an independent because what we are doing and how we are having our political conversations in the state of Arizona and the nation is not working. We have got to be willing to take some reasonable political risks to change that narrative. Educationally, I'm endorsed by the Arizona Education Association, Save Our Schools. I'm the only firefighter endorsed candidate and really have worked hard to build a big tent to build an independent bridge over the partisan divide. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
All right, thanks a lot, Art. Next up on the alphabetical order is Flagstaff Mayor Coral Evans. Coral, go ahead.
Thank you. I wish to say thank you to Save Our Schools, Arizona Network, as well as the Arizona Center for Economic Progress for inviting me here tonight for this discussion. Again, my name is Coral Evans. I'm a 3rd-generation daughter of Arizona. I'm a previous Caveat Joint Tech School Governing Board member. I own a small business, and I am currently the mayor of the city of Flagstaff. and I'm running for Arizona State House of Representatives. My mom was a school teacher. She taught kindergarten through third grade. I was also a school teacher. I taught adult education and GED. As mayor, I have championed local community initiatives that ensure access to educational opportunities for preschool and elementary school children. And as the executive director of a nonprofit, I have helped design and implement several community to school projects in high need neighborhoods. I believe that education is the single most important school tool that we have when it comes to addressing poverty. I'm running for Arizona State House of Representatives in District 6 because as a former school teacher and the daughter of a school teacher, I believe that Arizona should be leading this nation when it comes to pre-K through adult education. And as a state representative, I will be working toward that goal. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Coral. And last but certainly not least, our Senate candidate tonight is Felicia French. Felicia, go right ahead.
I'd like to thank Save Our Schools of Arizona and Dave for hosting this forum on one of the most critical issues facing Arizona, the state of our public education system. I'm Felicia French, a state Senate candidate for the district. Just a little bit about me. I'm a third generation Arizonan, and I've called the town of Pine my home for 19 years now. I'm a nurse, Army and Arizona National Guard veteran, and a proud single mom. I joined the Army at 17, and then over the 3 decades, I worked my way up the ranks. I rose from private to medic, to medevac helicopter pilot, to equal opportunity officer, and finally to senior medical advisor as a colonel. When I finally retired, I returned to Pine to be closer to Northern Arizona's beautiful and vast open spaces. That's when I went back to school for my master's and became a sustainability scientist and educator. With time on my hands, something I never had much of when I was in the Army, I decided to continue my career of public service. I began volunteering with the Sierra Club and the local Grand Canyon chapter, my local search and rescue, civil air patrol, and community emergency response team, as well as with the AmeriCares and their disaster relief efforts. And this summer, I volunteered for a month as a nurse on the Navajo Nation, helping with their COVID-19 efforts. As for why I'm running, I have 3 top priorities. First and foremost, as an educator and a mom, I know that no matter where a child lives, they deserve to attend a great public school. Fully funded public education has to be our top priority if we are to give our kids the tools they need to succeed. It's really long past time to pull Arizona out of the bottom rankings on almost every educational measure. After education, my next priorities are healthcare and local control. As a nurse, I want everyone, especially people in our rural communities, including our tribal nations, to have access to both quality preventative care and affordable medical treatment. Third, I'm running as a rural resident to strengthen local control and to make our state's government more accountable to Northern Arizona. I'm looking forward to bringing both my experience and passion for thinking globally and acting locally to my role as state senator. Thank you again for having me tonight.
Thanks a lot, Felicia, and thanks to everybody for their opening statements. Now to the questions. They were submitted by registered audience members prior to tonight's event. For the sake of transparency for our viewers, please know that these questions were shared with all the candidates ahead of time. Candidates, please stick to under 2 minutes, and we'll go in reverse alphabetical order for question number 1 and alternate that order for the remaining of the evening. So to question 1 for 2 minutes, we'll start with Felicia French, excuse me. What resources are needed to have excellent schools, and how will you make that how will you make sure that every student's public school, especially those from disadvantaged communities, has those resources?
Well, there are 3 resources I believe we need to have excellent schools. First, we need quality, trained, and certified teachers who can be passionate about teaching. And we need enough of those teachers to ensure that none of our students has to go without the professional instruction they need to succeed. It's personally shocking to me that right now in 28% of Arizona's classrooms, students don't have qualified instructor teaching them. That means we need to pay our teachers real working wages, create mentoring programs so we can retain them. And second, we also need to stop asking our teachers to be a jack of all trades or a Jill of all trades. We need our schools to also have nurses and counselors and support staff like bus drivers, especially in our rural communities. Third, we also need to provide the holistic learning environment children need to thrive. That's everything from clean, safe buildings and furnishings to up-to-date books and study guides to broadband and computer access for remote learning. With the COVID-19 pandemic, it's really painfully clear how the decades of funding cuts have put Arizona's children even further behind. It really is long past time that we give Arizona's families the educational resources they've been missing out on. and frankly, the resources that by law, our state constitution demands we give our students.
Thank you very much, Felicia. Next up is Mayor Evans. Go right ahead, Coral.
Thank you. Per the Arizona State Constitution, Article 9, Section 1, we are supposed to have established and maintained a general and uniform public school system. In order to have that type of system here in our state, we need to adhere to our state constitution, and that starts with adequately funding the public school system. It is obvious, given Arizona's ranking nationally, that we are not adhering to our constitutional obligation. Arizona's public school system is underfunded, understaffed, lacks basic infrastructure, and is underappreciated. Our schools in disadvantaged and rural communities need teachers, need support staff, need technology and equipment that works. We need broadband, internet. We need school buses that don't break down and buildings with roofs that do not leak. Education is our #1 priority here in Arizona, and we the people have been clear about it for decades. I think it's extremely important that as representatives, we will work, I know I will work, to make sure that our budget and our legislative priorities and actions align with our Constitution and that stated priority, so that all schools in Arizona have the resources that they need to help our students excel.
All right, thank you, Coral. And last but certainly not least, Art Babbitt. Go ahead, Art.
Great. Well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for the question. The first is kind of a philosophical piece around educational investments and resources. Is this notion that you can build an excellent education system or you can produce outcomes which are meaningful without investing is nonsensical. As a business owner and a community member and someone in 15 years in government, if you want to get something out the other end of the pipe, you had better be willing to put investments in the front end of that pipe. This notion that we can build something for free is just not serving us well. As the mayor accurately portrayed, educational investment is the #1 public policy priority in the state of Arizona year after year after year after year. What does strong educational excellence in education look like? They allow us to build an economy that is vibrant and relational to tomorrow. They allow us to build a passion for learning. My 11-year-old daughter has been absolutely magically touched by wonderful teachers who are caring, compassionate, competent professionals. That happens by intentional investments. That can't happen if we don't support those intentional investments. It builds that passion for learning, because you know what? My 11-year-old is going to be the one to solve the problems that we are leaving them with. In rural Arizona, LD6, for example, there's also not just urban rural, there's old and new. Facility issues around older school districts are incredibly important because they take resources for facilities, operations, and maintenance that those districts, older districts, are needing to divert from their operations. Support staff, training, professional development, counselors are so important. We are the #1 in the nation in highest number of students per counselor. That is unacceptable in 2020 because of the reality of today's world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Art. Once again, now we'll go to question #2, and again, 2 minutes each for all of you to answer. Schools at all levels are faced with significant new health and safety challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. How will you identify and advocate for the resources needed to ensure healthy and safe schools, as well as those resources necessary to deliver high quality education? And we'll start once again with Supervisor Babbitt. Go ahead, Art.
Great. So you can't make good decisions without good information and good data. As a county supervisor here for the last 8 years, I am on the board of directors for the Public Health Services District. We are the public health entity in charge at the county level with managing this pandemic. And we have been very active and engaged, working with educational partners to make sure that we are doing our very best to provide the data and information that school districts, whether those are public charter or whether they are public schools, have the information to make some of the most difficult decisions that we can imagine. And up in Northern Arizona, some schools are still all remote, some are in person. What we try and do is make sure we can inform governing boards, we can inform educators, we can inform the Flagstaff Education Association so that they can make the decisions and take the positions that they think are in the best interest. There are very few right and wrong answers today. We are all on different levels of curves, and having good data in terms of making these decisions is really, really critical. One of the huge deals is, though, the resources required in an already overstrained fiscal climate for education to help train the professionals, the support staff, and the families and parents who are navigating this new reality. So the budget matters, the investments matter. One thing this does just point out is that access to technology, professional training and development, it shows the critical importance of expanding rural broadband, especially that middle mile rural broadband for our educational systems, our families, our communities, and our economies. And so it starts with good data and ends with good strategic decision making.
All right, thanks a lot, Art. And now we'll go to Mayor Evans. Go ahead, Coral.
Thank you. You know, as mayor of the city of Flagstaff, I have relied on data and science to make decisions regarding COVID. As a representative, I will do the same. I will also speak directly to the districts, the different districts, their school governing boards, their leadership, their teachers and parents, in asking what they need to ensure their safety and the safety of their students. A one-size-fits-all approach to reopening schools is not going to work, because we all know, we who teach school, that depending on where the school is located, the population that the school serves, that's going to dictate what that school needs to make sure that the kiddos are successful. As a representative, to me, it is important that our schools have the tools that they need in place to be successful and to deliver high quality education. And again, that starts with adequately funding our public school system. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Coral. And Felicia, your turn.
Right now, working parents are struggling to pay rent and keep food on their families' tables. I know that for many, childcare is not an option, nor is working from home when they're essential frontline workers. At the same time, children need to be educated and given necessary social development. Our state government should be coordinating closely with health and medical professionals. As a nurse and a former senior medical advisor responsible for the welfare of over 5,000 National Guard members, I would make proper social distancing, hand washing, daily health checks, disinfecting, sanitizing, and mask wearing necessary prerequisites to reopening. And if our schools don't have the funding to do those things, then we really should reevaluate reopening. But those public health practices are only half of what must be done to keep our children, our teachers, and school staff and us safe. To prevent the spread of coronavirus, we have to give parents science-based reports that their children, that their schools are actually safe. That means our state legislature should hold our county and state health departments accountable for tracking and meeting goals, SMART goals, like having comprehensive tests with positive infection rates no greater than 5% at school, and test results within 72 hours or less, and contact tracing within 48 hours or less of positive test results. Honestly, we can control COVID-19. I saw this firsthand when I volunteered as a nurse in Tuba City earlier this summer. Science-based efforts, including face mask wearing in public, timely testing, and contact tracing, they all had a real effect on reducing cases in what was literally the country's worst hotspot for COVID-19. I believe that Arizona's elected leaders should follow the example of President Nez and Navajo and Hopi leaders, because they put science to work to successfully protect their communities.
All right, thank you, Felicia. Now we're on to question number 3. Again, 2 minutes each for the response to this question. Today, Arizona taxpayers subsidize private schools and private school tuition at a combined cost of about $400 million per year. What is your position on private school tax credits, empowerment scholarship account vouchers, and the emergence of micro schools, which will all have the result of diverting public tax dollars for private use? And we'll start with Felicia on this one.
Yes. As an educator and a mom, I want to see our state budget reflect our values. I believe that every child deserves a great public education regardless of their zip code. And I know that 95% of Arizonans agreed, the 95% whose children attend public schools. But since 1990, our legislature has cut taxes every single year. Those tax cuts have gutted our public schools. That means our state legislatures have denied a generation of children the education they deserve. But I want to be very clear. I don't disagree with the original intent and design of the ESAs. They were supposed to be designed for students with learning challenges and disabilities. And I support that without reservation. But the truth is, the formula for how these students who need extra support are funded has not been adjusted for 40 years. So really, the ESAs that exist right now don't actually effectively serve the students with the greatest need. Worse yet, private charter schools are not required to support or even admit students with learning disabilities. That's because our state legislators have not ever held private charter schools to the same oversight standards and requirements as our public schools. So even though public school funding is diverted to private for profit charter schools, students with special needs aren't even being guaranteed that benefit, and that needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Felicia. Next up, it seems like she's in the middle all night. I think it's kind of how the way it's stacked up, but it's Mayor Evans. Go ahead, Coral.
So I want to refer us back to our state constitution and the fact that we were supposed to have a general and uniform public school system here in the state of Arizona. And the key words being public school system. And that starts with adequately funding the public school system here in the state. You cannot take money out of a system that's already underfunded to do something else and expect that it's going to function well. My grandfather was very clear when it came to money. He said, if you look after your pennies, they turn into dollars. Our current state representatives are not focusing on the structural issues within our budget, and that is negatively impacting public education in our state. You know, in the fiscal year 2019, here in Arizona, tax credits and tax cuts equated to $18.4 billion. $18.4 billion. That could have been used for education here. And only 25% of the corporations in Arizona pay Arizona income tax. So to put that another way, only 75% of the corporations here in Arizona do not pay state tax. They don't pay it. So right now our system is being funded on the back of middle-class Arizonans. The fact of the matter is that we have corporations that say they need a better educated workforce, yet they're not helping us pay to educate the workforce. We need to question what we are getting for the money that we are giving away. We need to make sure that we adhere to our constitutional mandate. We need to stop privatizing Arizona's public school system, and we need to fund it.
Thanks a lot, Coral. Art, you're up last here on this question. Go ahead.
Great. Well, so I do not support the use of taxpayer money for private educational institutions. This is another example of where the legislature really is lagging behind the public. What we saw in 2018 with Proposition 305, which I worked very hard to pass. I walked neighborhoods passing out Prop 305 information, is that we are far ahead of the Arizona legislature in terms of prioritizing good educational policy. There are so many aspects to what we need to do to create an educational landscape that, yes, has school choice and competition, that is good, but how the landscape actually plays out, the educational landscape, is really, really, really important. You can't say, yes, I'm all for school competition and school choice, and then have the legislature year after year after year pick the winners and losers in the educational system. All you have to do is look through statutes, how the rules for one are completely different and not relational to the other. That is picking the winners and losers. When we talk about our economic system, our economy doesn't work well. A free market economy does not work well when government goes in and say, oh, we're going to make this rules for, United Airlines, totally different, and American Airlines, you're going to pay, twice as much. That's what we do in the state of Arizona. Single source contracting, budget carry forwards, procurement, all these things are structurally built in to make sure that one has a better shot at winning at the expense of another. Educational competition is great. My 11-year-old daughter has benefited from that competition, but it's only as good and as effective as the landscape that is built. That is why government's primary purpose is to make sure those with money, power, and political influence don't steamroll those who do not have it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Art. And now we've reached the final question of this forum tonight. And it goes something like this. Do you support Proposition 208, which is Invest in Education, which would establish a 3.5% income tax surcharge on the wealthiest 1% of Arizonans, raising approximately $940 million annually to increase teacher and classroom staff salaries, reduce class sizes, and to add more more than double state funding for career and technical education. And I'm gonna do a moderatorial switch here. I'm gonna actually have Coral start because she hasn't done it yet. So we're gonna go Coral, Art, and Felicia in the order of this one. So we'll start with Mary Evans. Go ahead, Coral.
Thank you, Dave. So yes, I support Proposition 208, Invest in Ed. I'm appreciative of the people and the groups that worked hard to get this on November's ballot, and I look forward to voting for it. I have to say, though, that Proposition 208 directly speaks to the lack of leadership and representation that we have as Arizonans down at the Capitol. We should not have to go to the ballot every 2 years and beg for funding for education. Our teachers should not have to leave their classrooms and go down to the state capitol to beg for money for education. Again, I go back to the fact that in fiscal year 2019, tax cuts and credits equated to $18.4 billion. In 2019, we spent more money on the private prison system here in Arizona than we did our state university system. In Arizona, we have divested in our community college systems. Proposition 208 is going to raise $980 million annually. But our state representatives have made cuts that total 4.65 in the following category: all-day kindergarten, capital funding for textbooks and technology, school buses, basic building repair, new building construction, utility assistance, compensation for teachers, career and technical education, and the list goes on. It's not enough money. So here we are again, having to legislate a constitutional mandate at the ballot box. Our state should be investing in ed, but instead they're divesting in it. And it's absolutely appalling that every 2 years we have to put up an Invest for Ed sign. This is why I'm running for the Arizona State House, to make sure that we can address our issue with our public education system now.
Thank you, Coral. Now we'll go back to Art. So go ahead, Art Babbitt. All you.
Great. Yes, I'm supporting strongly Proposition 208. That is part of the reason the Arizona Education Association and Save Our Schools, I think, am one of the endorsed candidate with two great colleagues here tonight. And it speaks to what happens when our elected leaders fail to listen. And I think we've said a lot about that tonight. I think we need to understand part of this the 208 relates to increasing technical capacity that is so important as our economy and our state continues to evolve in the next generation of innovation and technology, whether that is the trades, whether that is digital infrastructure, or whether that is tourism and retail, which is the foundation of much of Northern Arizona. We need a varied and diverse set of skills for the next generation of people who are going to come up, solve tomorrow's problems, and work in tomorrow's economy. 208 is just, it has to get done if you agree that investment equates to an outcome. And if we want that outcome, we have got to take the political risk and take the political calculation of putting our money where our mouth is on it.
Thank you, Art. And finally, our Senate candidate here tonight is Felicia French. So Felicia, this is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, to reiterate, our legislature has cut taxes every single year since 1990. And at the same time, they've been cutting the funding for our kids' education. We've let nearly 3/4 of all our corporations in Arizona pay just $50 a year in state taxes, and some pay even less than that. That's not just unfair; that's downright wrong. As a soldier, I know that what it's like to make individual sacrifices for the greater good for your squad and your country. And I can live with tax cuts if they were fair. That's why I fully support Prop 208. And to be clear, 99% of Arizonans won't be affected by Prop 208 surcharge. Only those individuals with incomes of $250,000 per person or $500,000 per couple per year will pay that 3.5% on each dollar income above those thresholds. That tiny 1% of Arizonans will help us secure $940 million to hire and keep the teachers we desperately need, and it will finally reduce our overcrowded classrooms. 3.5 cents for every dollar in income over $250,000 is the least we can ask to make sure Arizona's children can thrive and our economy can also grow.
All right, thank you, Felicia, and Thank you for sharing so much valuable information with all of us tonight, candidates. And at this time, each of you will have 1 minute to share your final thoughts and remarks. We'll start in reverse alphabetical order for this last section. So, Ms. French, you are up once again with your closing remarks.
Well, thank you again for inviting me here to the SOS Candidate Forum with these wonderful candidates also, and the opportunity to share my values. I'd like to end by noting what we have all recognized with the COVID-19 pandemic. The long-standing inequities in education and healthcare have only deepened, especially in Northern Arizona's District 6. We see more and more that healthcare has to be a basic right. No one should go bankrupt paying medical bills. At the same time, we have to protect people from the double jeopardy of unemployment, losing your wages and also losing your health insurance, just when you can't afford to pay out-of-pocket care. We've also now seen that broadband and internet access have to be basic utilities like electricity and water. Kids in Northern Arizona who couldn't do homework online before COVID-19 are today falling further and further behind because they can't do their actual schoolwork online. We need to elect people who will put public service before profits and patriotism over politics. So thank you for all of your efforts on behalf of Arizona's children, because this is a year we can truly prioritize our students and all of our futures by investing in education.
Thank you a lot, Felicia. And now we'll turn it back over to Mayor Evans. Go ahead, Coral.
Well, once again, I want to say thank you to all of you who joined us here tonight. Thank you to the other candidates here. And thank you as well, Mr. Zorn, for moderating this event. You know, as a mayor of the city of Flagstaff, I understand that I was elected to represent the people who voted for me, the people who did not vote for me, and the people who could not vote for me. And those include children, people who are under the age of 18. As such, for me, I consider the title of state representative to be that of a job description. It is important that everyone be represented. As the daughter of a teacher, as a former teacher, as a mother of a daughter who attended public school, and as a former public school governing board member for a technical joint district, I'm looking forward to representing all of us down at the state and ensuring that the teaching field, the field of education, is viewed as a profession. I appreciate your support of me, and I ask you for your vote in November. You can find me on social media at Coral4AZ. Thank you.
Thank you, Coral. And finally, last up for the night, Supervisor Art Babbitt. Go ahead, Art.
Great. Well, we need to care for our educators and our educational system, just as those educators have cared for our kids. I'm running as an independent, again, because what we are doing is not working. In a closely divided legislature, a strategic and competent independent has a really unique possible role to play in bridging that divide that currently exists between two parties who too often are more focused on kind of gotcha politics and grenade lobbing than they are problem solving. You pay our salaries. You deserve us to work on the problems that are important to you. I'm a problem solver. I get work done. That's what my career has been founded in. And that's the skills, and those are the values that I bring as a candidate to the Arizona legislature. We have an opportunity to make history in Arizona. And I want to ask you for your support. You can go to art4az.com. And I really appreciate you taking the time out and hearing three candidates who I think share your values around education.
All right. Thank you, Art. And thank you, everybody, all of our candidates for being here tonight. I know we all appreciate your willingness to share your views honestly and directly with voters. Viewers, we thank you for joining us. A full-length video of tonight's forum will be available on YouTube after the event. Remember, the last day to register to vote is Monday, so if you've not registered yet, please go out there and do so. Remember to mail back your ballot by October 27th as well. Voting centers are open for in-person voting starting October 7th, so look at your county recorder's website for locations or post in the comments thread if you'd like help finding that information. Once again, I'm Dave Zorn with CAF Radio here in Flagstaff, and on behalf of the Arizona Center for Economic Progress and Save Our Schools Arizona Network, thank you for joining us and being an informed voter. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.